Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Thursday, May 8th. This is a meeting of the Chelsea Licensing Commission. I am here this evening with fellow commissioners Ennio Lopez, Alexandria Christmas, Emily Cherniak, and myself, Marnie McAlpine, along with Naomi Lebron, our licensing clerk, B from the licensing department, as well as Peter Christopher, our assistant city solicitor, and Sergeant Chung from the Chelsea Police Department, as well as Officer McLaughlin from the Police Department, and I know that Chief Houghton is here with us as well this evening. With that, we are going to kick things off. To start, can I get an approval of the minutes from our last two meetings? Are you guys good with doing that in a batch? Okay. An approval for the minutes from the March 20th, 2025 meeting, as well as an approval of the minutes from the April 10th, 2025 meeting. And a second?
A second.
All in favor? Aye. Can you guys turn on your mics, please? Yeah. Thank you.
Aye.
Perfect. You get those? Okay, moving right along, we're going to move into the clerk's update.
I need approval and a motion to vote the next 6 months of licensing meeting dates.
Did anybody have any known conflicts already on the dates proposed?
I'll make a motion to approve.
So I may have a conflict on the December date. Outside of that, I don't have any issues. You made a motion to approve,
Motion to approve.
And a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, anything else?
Nothing else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, we are going to get started. Before we get started, matter of housekeeping, please make sure when you come up to speak before us, you step up to the microphone, speak clearly, state your name and your reason for coming before us. If there are multiple people speaking, please make sure you each step up to the microphone so that way not only we can hear you, but the members of the community that are watching this at home are also able to hear the conversations that are taking place. I would like to take the agenda out of order this evening and start with the second public hearing. Can I get a motion to go out of order?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. That being said, we're going to start off this evening with a public hearing to consider a change of corporation name to Rise Holdings Incorporated and amend the cannabis license application to include medical marijuana for Rise Holdings Incorporated, DBA Rise at 200 Beecham Street, Chelsea, Mass.
Good evening. Bill Silverman here for Rise Holdings, Inc. Pretty much says it all. There's a entity that's operating known as Green Star Herbals, Inc. It operates adult use. We're looking to add medical. In order to add medical, you have to do what's called vertically integrated. You have to have cultivation capability and manufacturing ability. Green Star doesn't have that. Its sister company, same ownership, does have that. So we're changing the name to Rise Holdings, Inc., and we're asking for medical, and that will be compliant with the state's regulations as well.
Thank you. Questions from my fellow commissioners to start things off?
No, straightforward. Yeah.
Anyone? No? Sergeant Chung, questions, concerns from the police department?
Yep, there are none. There's literally zero calls though. There's one call in the area. It's not even by the establishment.
Thank you very much. Are is there anybody in the public that would like to speak on this matter? I see no one. That being said, does someone want to make a motion to approve the change in the corporation name and approve the medical marijuana?
I'll make a motion to change the name.
A second.
What about the second part of that, of adding the medical marijuana?
I make a motion to change all of it.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure you weren't just saying the name. And a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. And continuing out of order, if everybody, yep. Continuing out of order, if my fellow commissioners are in agreement, I'd like to move to the discussion of the Commonwealth's Post. Sure. Thank you. Sergeant, if we can discuss the concerns for the constable licenses.
Sure, I'm going to defer to the chief.
Thank you.
Chief Owen?
Good evening, Madam Chair and the Commission. I believe this will be quick. We've come to a resolution with the city attorneys. Back in 2020, the Police Reform Act mandated that constables who have arrest powers need to go to a full-time police academy, putting a huge liability on the police department. No one has made an arrest as a constable in several years, but they have in the past. We do not have a city ordinance that mentions it, so there could be a gray area. So I've talked to the city attorney, the assistant city attorney. We've come to an agreement that they will work out of the law office, only serving civil process. If they're only serving papers, not affecting any civil arrest, they don't fall under the Police Reform Act, and they can continue doing service with the city. So we would do, just like we do for every licensing packet, we would do a brief regular background check, send it back to the law department, not including the Suffolk County Sheriffs who have their own civil process. So if the city decided to use the Suffolk County Sheriff's Civil Division, we don't need to do background checks on them. They're all Corey cleared. And we would provide the IDs and we'd be clear. The problem was that under the law, as a representative knows, it's an archaic law that they still have a right to place people in custody. And they cannot do that under the new Police Reform Act. So I believe the resolution, Peter, I believe that's correct, right? That we're all set on that moving forward?
Yep, as you stated, that's going to be the plan moving forward. The police will still run the queries and everything for the applicants to be constables throughout the city, but there will be no arrest powers that these individuals would have. Not that we've run into that.
Not for several years. And they would
Since I've been here.
run out of the legal department, nothing to do with the police except just our legal licensing responsibility. And that keeps us clear out of the Police Reform Act. And if other cities like Haverhill have it in their ordinance, making them go to a full-time police academy, I think gentlemen that we use are very old. They're older than me. So I think we're all set on this issue. If there's any questions you have about constables, it's mostly service on evictions, divorces, nothing to do with law enforcement. It's all the civil side.
Just the legal paperwork. that
Legal paper,
somebody
and that's
has
all
to
they can
be-
do now. No, I would also suggest, if they have a legal right to carry, they can carry a firearm, but they should not have it exposed. In the past, some constables wear uniforms, blue lights. I give blue light permits out. No constable in Chelsea has a blue light permit. If they do live in Chelsea, I would just warn them during the process that they shouldn't bear a firearm shown, like that they're a law enforcement officer. I don't think I can do anything legally. If they have a legal right to carry, they can carry to protect themselves. That's the only slight issue, but all good besides that.
Questions from my fellow commissioners?
I have a question. So this is being brought to us because we're going to issue a certificate or licensing? Like, what is our responsibility in regards of this?
So the constable licenses, and everybody please correct me if I'm wrong, but the constable licenses fall underneath the commission, along with all of the other licenses that we see before us on a regular basis. Do we have any currently?
We have constables in the city, yeah.
So the they would have to come before us if there was any sort of issues, just like any other license. So this was brought before us because there's been concern with the changes that took place.
With the law. And I would just suggest, is in the past, we gave Naomi 3 years. I would not do 3 years. I would do every year that they have to reapply. Lot changes in 3 years, and they could slip under the radar, but a year, I think, is reasonable. We would still provide the identification for them and supply that to the legal department and the licensing, but I would say every year, not every 3 years.
Who employs them?
They're self-employed. They basically, if the city wants to hire because of a public issue.
Yeah.
They like deliver subpoenas and stuff?
Yeah, so any attorney can call up a constable, and they have a fee that you would pay in order for them to deliver it. And they do civil process. So
Got it.
any type of civil matter, they will be the ones, or they can be the ones who go and do it. Like the chief said, the Suffolk, the sheriff's department is also authorized to do it, and there are some special process servers that can be authorized to do it by the courts as well, but that's,
And I think the treasurer, someone in the city, a portion goes back to the city. Whatever they collect, they have to give, I forget the portion, the percentage, and that is logged somewhere. I believe it's in the treasurer's department in City Hall. So if they do 30 processes, a certain percentage goes back to the city that they must pay.
Yes, Ennio?
I have a question. So in order for a constable to work in the city of Chelsea, we have to approve their license, or is the state?
No, because this is for us, the city, you can probably explain better, Peter. Anybody, I could serve you with papers tomorrow being a constable from, Malden. It's control of the constables we have working in the city.
Okay.
Who want to work here for property owners and for the city to serve papers. But anybody can still serve you. It's just the regulations for the ones that we oversee.
The ones that the city would be hiring for
City
anything?
yes, the city would call on at certain times.
yeah, or for any civil matter.
Instead of civil matter, yeah.
So usually cities will have a list. I'm sure we have one that you would just look at, and like the chief said, it doesn't matter what town you're in. You could serve someone in Holyoke, but if you lived in Chelsea, you had to go through our process to do it.
I see, okay.
Other questions? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this matter? Yes.
Just because you made reference, if I could, just because I'm more intimately aware of this than I'd like to be. About a month and a half, 2 months ago, Post issued a ruling, a letter that they mailed out across the Commonwealth that said an eviction was an arrest for purposes of post law, and as a result, constables or special process servers, what they call 4C special process servers, could no longer do evictions. The trial court, as everybody in the Commonwealth that knew what was going on expected, fired back and said, you're flat out wrong. There was an appeals court case from 15 years ago that said an eviction is not an arrest. And so this resulted in the city of Worcester had issued an order to its constables, you can't do any evictions. And of course, the housing court was like, well, we have orders to do evictions. You're saying we can't appoint someone, constables can't do it, there aren't enough sheriffs to do it. So the trial court pushed back. Just today, the housing court's chief lawyer and Post came up with something where they on the firearms issue, where they're going to jointly agree that constables doing evictions should not be carrying a firearm while they're doing an eviction. So that's something that everyone's going to get some letter that comes out, whether it's through the cities or towns, but they just announced that this morning. So, but the trial court has pushed back and said, no, an eviction is not an arrest. The only piece of civil process a constable can no longer serve because of the Post law was if you went and got a civil judgment against someone, a money judgment, you'd be able to get a capious arrest warrant. It was a civil arrest warrant if somebody refused to show up to court. And that was basically for contempt of court. The Post and everyone else has agreed that a constable can no longer serve that, even though it's a piece of civil process. So I think, I think the chief's, the 1 year thing, some constables won't like it, but I think it's a smart approach. I think it's a smart approach, no charge.
Thank you.
Hopefully it helps.
Do we need to do anything to make so they have to be renewed every year versus every 3 years?
Well, we've been doing it for the last 2 years, every year.
Okay.
It used to be every 3 years. But the
So now
chief-
you do every year? You do every year already?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay. Well, perfect. Then it sounds like between the law department and the police department, we've already come to an agreement there. We're already having them renew once a year. So it sounds like we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Okay. Then can I get a motion to close this discussion?
Motion.
And a
To
second?
close.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Fantastic. Okay, that moves us back up to the first public hearing on our agenda. We have a disciplinary public hearing to consider revoking, suspending, or modifying the all-alcoholic beverage off-premise license as non-compliance to the rules and regulations, 2.02, 2.03A, 2.04G, 2.05, 2.08B, sorry, my eyes did something funny, Q, 2.09A, C, E, H, and 2.12A5 of the City of Chelsea Licensing Commission in regards to Police Report 25-738-OF to Unity Beverages Incorporated, DBA Heller's Liquors at 429 Broadway, Chelsea, Mass. You can step up, please.
Good evening, members of the commission, Madam Chair. Attorney Jeff Turco on behalf of Heller's Liquor. With me is the owner, and I'm at 378 Broadway in Chelsea, Mass. If you would introduce yourself.
Good evening, the chair and the commissioners and the police sergeant. Yeah, my name is Ike Asog. I was here last month, and I guess I'm a familiar face by this time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming back this evening. Sergeant Chung, are you ready to kick things off?
I am. I'm just doing a sound test. I couldn't do it earlier because I didn't want to interrupt the space.
No worries.
So we'll just go through this, and then when it's ready for the videos, then, because I heard it, but I want to make sure you guys could hear it.
Appreciate that.
So we'll adjust it as we get to that part.
Okay, sounds
Madam
good.
Chair,
You mind if we
further.
move over there just so I get a better
Of
angle?
course.
You can take the microphone with you. Make it easier.
It's across the street. I know. Okay. It's right by where we're preaching. Yes. Okay.
Can you hear that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Just to
Nice little soft
just setting,
jazz
just
to
setting
kick
the,
things
just
off.
setting the mood.
Appreciate
Yeah.
that. It's been a long day.
All right, perfect. Good evening, council. Hi, good evening, how are you?
Thank you.
Commissioners, this is in reference to incident number 25-738-OF as mentioned. How I'm gonna do this is, since it's lengthy, I'm gonna go through all of the reports. I'll read them, I'll summarize the rules and regs, and then from there we'll break it into videos. Start off with the private surveillance videos, and then we'll go to the body worn camera. I'll try to keep it as chronological as possible, so that way everyone can try to follow and you can tell me to slow down at any time. You guys as well.
Thank you.
On March 11th at approximately 1300 hours, 2025, while assigned to a detail in the area of Broadway in between 5th and 4th, I, Sergeant Chung, observed a possible licensing violation by the staff at Heller's Liquors, which is out of 429 Broadway. It should be noted that as a Chelsea police officer in the Commonwealth, I am duly authorized to enforce the regulations set forth by the ABCC, ensuring compliance with Massachusetts liquor laws. My role includes overseeing the responsible sale, distribution, and consumption of alcohol within the city and its licensed establishment to maintain public safety and uphold the rules and regulations. I also am currently serving on the City of Chelsea's Licensing Commission as the representative for the Chelsea PD. As a sergeant assigned to the Community Services Division, I also oversee the Downtown Task Force and am familiar with the quality of life issues surrounding substance abuse and the individuals that often fall victim to these dependencies. While I was posted at the front area of their establishment, I observed Two male parties known to me from numerous previous encounters involving protective custodies and public drinking enter into Heller's Liquors. The two parties were identified as Illyrian Zoo and Rigoberto Gonzalez. It should be noted that with the details starting at 7 a.m. and with an end time of 1500 hours, which is 3 p.m., I have been observing them in the adjacent area throughout the day and observed their conditions fluctuating between sober and under the influence. Having a history of previous encounters with these individuals, including making numerous separate unrelated arrests for OUI and alcohol-related offenses, it is through my training and experience that individuals who are impaired can present themselves with an unsteady gait, bloodshot, glassy eyes, and an odor of alcoholic beverage that can be detected emanating from their breath and body. To summarize, it should be noted that Zoo currently has 5 call log entries of being placed into police protective custody and 5 entries of being sent to the hospital due to being located by officers as laid out in public due to his intoxication. These are all date back to the year 2021. To summarize, it should be noted that Gonzalez currently has a total of 193 call log entries of being placed into police protective custody, 21 alcohol-related criminal charges, and hundreds of medical transports to the hospital due to being located as laid out in public due to his intoxication. These all date back to the 1990s, excuse me. Both male parties then exited the store. Approximately 3 to 5 minutes later, I observed them walk over to the adjacent porta potty that was assigned to the detail crew. I then observed Gonzalez pull out an item in a brown paper bag from the right pocket of his pants and position himself in the area of the porta potty away from officers' view. Zoo, who was in position in the area by the porta potty that was still in view by officers, is then observed being past the item in the brown paper bag. Zoo is then seen taking a swig from the brown paper bag, commonly recognized to contain hard alcohol. It should be noted that in the city of Chelsea, alcohol newly purchased from a store is often in a brown paper bag or a black plastic bag for larger orders. Officer Cohen Jr., who was also working the detail with me, assisted me in encountering both male parties. As both male parties observed officers approaching them, Zoo then returned the item back to Gonzalez, who then secured it in the same right pants pocket and turned their bodies away from officers. They both then began to part ways, and officers were able to encounter Gonzalez prior to him fleeing the scene. Gonzalez was then informed of the officer's observation and admitted that he had alcohol on him and apologized. When asked where it was purchased, and without verbally stating, pointed over to the direction of Heller's Liquors, but denied being the one who purchased it. Prior to removing the open container of alcohol off of him, I requested through dispatch for an officer with a body-worn camera so that I can document the encounter. Officer Rossetti arrived on scene, activated his body-worn camera. Gonzalez was then directed to turn over the open container of alcohol to me, and I was able to see that it indeed was a pint size, which is 375 ml, of Rubel vodka with 40% alcohol volume of ethanol and is listed as 80 proof. As I held the bottle in my hand, I observed that a quarter of the alcohol of the bottle was already gone. As I was encountering Gonzalez, I could smell alcohol on his breath as he was speaking to me, and his eyes were bloodshot and glassy. Gonzalez was then given a verbal warning and was sent on his way. With the suspicion that liquor was being sold to intoxicated parties, officer then responded to Heller's to investigate further. Upon entry into the establishment, I observed 4 to 6 individuals also known to me from previous encounters involving alcohol waiting to purchase alcohol. There's one female clerk behind the counter. I also observed one male party, unidentified, was already at the counter, leaning onto it as if he was using the counter to hold himself up with half of his rear end revealed. I then observed approximately 5 $1 bills atop of said counter directly in front of the unidentified male party. I then directed the male party to pull up his pants and cover himself up. When he turned to look at me, he barely could keep his eyes open and appeared disoriented. I also observed him to have bloodshot and glassy eyes. I then asked who the money belonged to, and the unidentified claimed it to be his. The female clerk finished with another patron and was now tending to the disoriented, unidentified male party. They engage in conversation, and as she goes to grab his alcohol of choice to complete the sale, officers immediately stopped the sale to prevent a second violation of the sale of liquor to intoxicated persons. Unidentified male was verbally warned and sent on his way. It should be noted, though, that in hindsight, I personally encountered this male party again on April 1st, being intoxicated and disruptive while riding on an MBTA bus. Male party was ultimately identified during the encounter as Juan Ochoa of Everett. He was removed from the bus and ultimately sent to the hospital per his request, separate from this incident. At this point, I observed a sudden shift of the local patrons that were already in the establishment upon officers' arrival, exiting the establishment as if they've changed their mind on purchasing alcohol. I attempted to speak to the female clerk, and it was quickly determined that there was a language barrier. Utilizing Google Translate, I was able to engage with her in functional basic Spanish. She presented a Colombian passport to confirm her ID as Melissa Laura Patino. I also advised her that I needed to speak to the manager or owner, which she then replied that she did not know him by name and had unsuccessful attempts at reaching him by cell phone. She then inquired on my presence, and I informed her that I am suspecting that she sold alcohol to intoxicated parties, in which she then claimed that the one she sold to appeared fine and denied any violations. She then called another employee identified as Christina Lasso. Lasso stated that she was on vacation but was able to provide me a first name for the owner as Ike and a phone number. I then left a note behind for Ike to give me a call as soon as possible, as I was also interested in securing video surveillance from his business. Cleared and returned to my detail. It should be noted that while in the establishment, I also observed the liquor licenses and business permits displayed closest to the ceiling atop of a wall towards the rear of said space. Its current elevated location is deemed to be a violation, as it cannot be read without difficulty, and with it being towards the back, does not satisfy the conspicuous nature as required by licensing rules and regs. Later on in the day, at approximately 2:15 p.m., Ike called me and provided his full name. Ike explained that Patino is a new employee as of only a week ago, while Lasso was out on vacation. Ike stated that he was supposed to train her today, but had an emergency eye procedure that is limiting his vision. Ike was advised of my findings today and was directed that he memorialize surveillance video for March 10th and March 11th from open to close. A written directive was then delivered to the establishment by Officer McLaughlin on March 13th, advising of the same, delivered to an employee identified as first name Lady. Ike then called me again on March 13th, requesting some more time to secure a video from his security contractor that is out of Rhode Island. Considering that he was recovering from a recent eye exam, I authorized him 4 additional days, 2 to 3 days, beginning from the start of the delivery of the written directive. I will follow up with him again on March 20th to ensure that he has the video. If he fails to deliver, I will then include the additional violation in accordance with the Licensing Commission Rules and Regs, Section 2.08, subsection G. It also should be noted that Ike provided me via email all of his current employees per my request without their date of births. Using the limited information I was given, began conducting a query check on all of his employees, yielding negative results for all employees except Lasso. I was able to do run a full query on Lasso because I obtained her date of birth myself on March 11th when I spoke to her via phone. It is my recommendation that Lasso's Board of Probate would need to be reviewed further to determine suitability for continuing employment at a licensed establishment while being indicted out of Suffolk Superior Court. At this time, I will be recommending a conference for Hellas Liquors to the City of Chelsea's Licensing Commission for the following violations. Section 2.03, license display. Section 2.08, subsection P, which is the forbidden to make or sale or delivery of alcoholic beverages, and its MGL equivalent, which is Chapter 138, Section 69, sale or delivery to intoxicated persons. Next up, I do have Officer Barker Santiago's doctored report of our administrative inspection. On Tuesday, April 8th, this officer, along with Sergeant Star Chung, Officer Santiago here. Do you want to read your report? Okay. He's actually here, so I'm going to have him present his report.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Good evening.
Good evening, Officer Santiago.
All right, as Officer Santiago, Chelsea Police Department, assigned to Uniform Patrol, also assigned to the licensing unit with Sergeant Star Chung and Officer McLaughlin. I'll start off with this supplemental report along with Sergeant Chung. On Tuesday, April 8, 2025, this also, along with the Sergeant Chung, conducted an administrative walkthrough of the Hella's Liquor Store located at 429 Broadway, Chelsea, Mass, prior to their conference in front of the Licensing Commission scheduled on April 10, 2025. The inspection went as follows. Officers attempt to gain access to the rear door, which is located on the Hawthorne Street side, the rear emergency exit. The establishments and were unable to make entry due to the rear door being locked. It should be noted that in 2013, the Licensing Commission sanctioned a 14-day suspension against Hellers for various infractions and were able to get approval for the rear door to no longer be an entrance or an exit due to the constant trespassing when Hellers still had their bottles in the area. After several knocks on the door, officers were able to were greeted by one of the employees, identified as Kelly Zapata Usaga. I told Kelly in Spanish that we were here to conduct an inspection of the establishment. I asked Kelly for her boss. I asked where he was. She said he's not here. Kelly then ended up calling her boss. There was also no advisory that the proper identification is required to the purchase of alcohol. Advisory was not posted. It should be noted that in the report that officers observed several intoxicated customers walking inside the establishment and attempted to purchase alcohol beverages while in our presence. Kelly turned them away. I also observed several customers attempt to, I read that again. Turn them away without purchase of alcohol without of their country's identification and passports and, for purchase of alcohol and types of identification. So in other words, sum up this paragraph. We were there doing an inspection. Several customers came in that were intoxicated. She refused service in our presence. She did ask for the IDs. At that time, they didn't have IDs on them, or they didn't have the proper identification that they need. But in our presence, in fairness, she did turn them away. Does that happen all the time? I don't know, just maybe because we were there. At that point, I explained to Kelly that the state of Massachusetts only accepts certain identifications for the purpose of alcohol sales. So again, I explained to her again, the IDs that are acceptable in the state of Massachusetts. It should be noted that in hindsight, after the administrative inspection, there was an advisory from the ABCC that at the beginning of April 8th, there were new standards put into place. Again, we go back to the new IDs now. The ABC came out. I believe Naomi sent that out. What are acceptable now, IDs, and additional to what's already there. So pretty much I'm explaining that to her, what's going on. I don't think she really understood due to a little language barrier, but later on I explained to the owner. At this point, the officer spoke with the Hellers owner, Mr. Ike. I can't even pronounce your last name, so I don't want to butcher it. Sergeant Chung advised Ike that we were here to conduct an administrative inspection of the establishment. Sergeant Chung advised Ike of the things that were observed and what have to be corrected. In other words, again, like with Sergeant Chung, to piggyback what she said, we were there doing an administrative inspection. So did she, numerous of violations. So at that point, Sergeant Chung just explained what needs to be corrected, what needs to be posted, stuff like that. Ike states that he did not, Sergeant Chung advised Ike the things that were observed and had to be corrected. I asked Ike for a copy of the rules and regulations from the License Committee. Ike states he did not have one on the establishment. In closing, the officers explained that he should review a copy of the rules and regulations, We left Ike our contact information. I thanked Ike for the time and explained that he had any questions, feel free to contact Sergeant Chung in the CPD. Just to go back, during our administrative inspection again, Sergeant Chung, word for word, she explained everything that needed to be corrected, from intoxicated personnel, customers walking in, asking for IDs, proper labeling of all the alcohol that's being sold, rules and regulations, a copy of that, posted permits and certificates that need to be posted, hours of operation, the 9024 laws, the OUI laws that weren't posted. There's cases of beer in the alleyway going to the rear of the door. So again, I'm not gonna beat a horse here. Just numerous of violations. And then she had the conversation with him there and explained to him, again, this is what we hear, this is what we're doing, and it's gonna be documented. So,
Officer Santiago,
Yes.
would that conclude your report and your testimony on the
Unless you have
matter?
any questions for me?
Questions from yourself?
I don't have any questions now. I'll raise questions regarding his report.
Okay. Any questions from my fellow commissioners of Officer Santiago?
No.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, I'm sorry. Can I just...
Yeah, shoot away.
Officer Santiago, have you seen this from the ABCC, this directive from January from the ABCC?
From January, no.
Yes.
Officer Turco, could you tell us what?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. Forgive me.
No.
So this is a memo from the ABCC saying on January 8, 2025, Governor Haley signed an act further regulating acceptance of certain types of alcohol, types of identification, purchase alcohol, which changes MGL 138, Section 34B, and then it lists the text of the law can be found here, and then as a result, beginning April 8, which the officer cited in his report, alcoholic beverage licensees may reasonably rely on the following list. And what I think is important, because I think there was a misunderstanding in the report, it says that there was a change to allow a passport or an ID from another state. In fact, that's wrong. This law confirms, or this memo from the ABCC confirms, the only two additions after the governor signed the law is a valid license issued by another state and the global entry issued by the United States Customs and Border Protection. The licenses or the documentation that's allowed by law prior to the change in January was a mass driver's license, a mass liquor ID card, a mass identification card, a passport issued by the United States or a government that is officially recognized by the United States, passport card for a passport issued by the United States or U.S. military identification card. So just the question of what ID was allowed, the only two new additions, a global entry and a valid ID from another state. So I think you have it, but if
Yeah,
not,
I have that, but
So,
Did you still want this question answered? You originally asked, your original question.
yeah, no, so I just want to make sure you're aware of these guidelines from the governor. Have you seen them before and what the additions are?
You presented to us our own memorandum from the city of Chelsea. No, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, I only get these. You get, Roger, thank you.
yeah, recently when the changes were made is when I got it.
Right.
So-
But you're aware that the only new additions that a
Right,
passport
is the
from
right.
passport from another country was always acceptable under the laws.
If it's a passport that the United States recognized, yes.
Correct.
Right.
So while you were there, did you see any passport from a country?
When I was there, no one had any ID.
Okay, and so I guess my question is, you're raising a question about what IDs might have been shown, and I'm simply saying that a passport from any other country in the world, as long as our government recognizes
But
them,
what I'm saying is,
valid.
there was no ID shown at all.
And you also didn't see a seal, correct?
I didn't see any ID.
Thank you.
So I don't know if there's any
thank
seal
you.
or anything like that.
thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Officer Santiago. Sergeant Chung?
All right, moving right along here, quoting the fierce Madam Commissioner, moving right along here.
I appreciate that description.
This month marks a year that I've been here.
Aw,
Happy
welcome.
anniversary.
Congratulations.
So, all right.
You've been a
enough,
pleasure.
Enough about me.
Soft music at the beginning.
Right? Sets the mood with a little bit of jazz.
You-
Let's end this on a good note.
All right, next up, we are going to go into the videos. Okay?
Yes.
That's what we'll do.
Before we jump into actually watching the video,
Please.
if I recall when you were before us last month, you had mentioned that your videos are motion censored. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we can get into that after the fact, but motion censored video isn't necessarily providing us with a rolling 30 days worth of footage because it's only doing it if your cameras get triggered. And motion censored cameras don't always get triggered. So you could be potentially missing information that could be protecting your business if you had an issue. So I just wanted to make note of that before Sergeant gets into that.
Can I explain further on my knowledge about motion sensor? If a channel is idle, that is no movement, it does not show. And in this circumstance, I provided a 48 hours running instead of breaking it because we noticed that if we segmented it, I was going to sleep in the store that night to go to the next day.
Yep.
So my technician had to download it from 8th of the first day, running to midnight of the second day. So the dark portions are possibly that there were no actions or activities, and possibly that they were nights. So there was no tampering of that activity or of the video.
My statement is purely motion cameras do not always go off. So sometimes you can have motion take place and it
Yes.
doesn't trigger the camera.
Yes.
So it's not the best system to have in place. A rolling camera to protect your business as well as to be in compliance with what the city needs would be a better system to have in place.
Okay, I will take that under advisement and see what can happen.
I have motion censored cameras, and there's times where there's people right there and they don't trigger. So it's something that happens with those systems sometimes because it's technology.
Okay.
Thank you. Sergeant Chung?
Thank you. At this time, Counselor, do you have the supplemental narrative highlighting the timestamps of videos?
I do not.
Okay, I'd like to provide,
Yes, please.
so you can follow along. I noticed you were following along with my report, so in full transparency, I want you to have it.
Do you have an extra copy?
Let me put it together for you.
Sergeant,
You have it?
she had it.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Awesome. Mine's front and back. I'm just trying to save some trees. So it's a little, only I can understand it. All right, here we go. Surveillance videos submitted for this incident are in DAT format, DAT, which stands really for generic data file, and was viewed via attached player labeled Superplay, provided with the video files. The following narrative will be highlighting video evidence in chronological and summarized order as reviewed through submitted video surveillance by Heller's Liquors. The notes are written in summary format to assist in simultaneously presenting. The times appear approximate between all cameras. There are 3 cameras involved, 2 interiors, well, in this case anyways. There's two interiors. One is a from entrance from the door view, and I've labeled it here as interior, okay? There is also another view for interior, which is cashier view, because it gives you the side where the larger fridges are that has a better view of the cashier view. Then the third camera that I reviewed was the exterior camera. And I will do it as chronologically as I can, and hopefully it will piece it all together. The videos are very separate, so it took a lot of time to coordinate, okay? Any questions before we start?
No.
No.
We're gonna start with the exterior views. This is timestamped starting at 8:09 in the morning. As you could see in the narration, it looks like you guys have a copy as well. At 8:16 in the morning, so I will fast forward until then. At 8:15 right now, just for a buffer zone, so you guys can draw your attention. Does everyone see the footage okay? All right, it's 8:16 a.m., male wearing a maroon sweater, another male wearing a partial maroon sweater and blue jeans, which is our subject here, hereinafter referred to by his first name as Juan Ochoa. All black attire male enters the store. They all buy liquor. They buy a vodka with black cap, which is ruble, and a Bacardi rum with white cap. This is the first alcohol purchase. So this is them walking out. It's the first of the morning. Heller's has an 8 a.m. open. This is for the interior view. At 8:13 is when the group walks in. They walk in, he's fine. Kind of talking, I'll fast forward a little bit until he enters, and then I'll go to the 8:16 timestamp for the interior view. They enter. Forwarding to 8:16. Right now we are at 8:12. 8:13, they all come in, as you could see. Just remember what he's wearing so that way you can recognize him the next time you see him on video. I'll fast forward in the interest of time, because we do have quite some video to go through here. As we go through this, just remember the times and the amount of times alcohol is purchased. Okay, they walk out. Next timestamp, 9:05. Again, I will show the exterior first. And then I will show the interior view. pause it for now while I read. 9:05 a.m. Juan enters Heller's, asks to charge phone, engages with clerk, buys liquor, tilts it on the counter, as in tipping the bottle of liquor. He puts it in his sweater pocket and walks out. The second alcohol purchase was approximately 45 minutes later from the first purchase. It appears at this time, though, that his steadiness is different from earlier observations, and he is progressively becoming intoxicated. I'm just looking for him. Start over. Now he's walking from left to right. Enters the door. I'm going to switch over to interior view. Again, I'm going to fast forward to 9:05. He asks the clerk to charge his phone. She passes him the bottle. He makes the purchase. It tilts. Stuffs it in his sweater and walks out.
Did he leave his phone behind?
I guess he was charging his phone for him.
Okay.
I'll be back.
He knew he was coming back.
He did, yeah.
Okay.
That's wild.
He also tips her throughout the day. Just chronological order here. We're gonna go to 9:24 where it shows the loiterer. So, a 924, a male party wearing a black jacket labeled Lewis, hereinafter referred to as loiterer, enters the store. And just keep track of that time at 924. I want you to remember this loiterer because throughout the review of videos, he's probably hanging at the liquor store at almost 3 hours without being asked to leave. He left in the middle because he bought some liquor, but then he came back and hung out for another hour and a half.
It does appear to be a friend. I mean, he
Yeah, did you
kissed
ask
her
the relationship?
hand and
Yeah.
it
Do
seemed-
we know
it
the
seemed a little-
relationship?
I did not ask for their relationship, correct.
It would be awful friendly for a random customer to,
Kiss your hand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, definitely, there's some sort of, appears to be familiarity there, but if I'm at work, I can't have somebody hanging around me for 3 hours, you know, especially if we have rules and regs that says loitering. This system, sorry for the drawn-out approach, but it's how it was, it's just piecemeal. Each clip is about 20, 25 minutes, so I'm just trying to, in the interest of time for you guys.
appreciate that, Sergeant.
All right, so we're gonna move on to 928. Exterior view. Please pay attention to this exterior view. I'm not going to fast forward it in the interest of the details that were observed. So this external camera, it's gonna show Juan unsteady on his feet at this point. It is 9:30 pretty much when he exits. There he is. He's coming on screen pretty soon. It shows him unsteady falling into construction equipment outside. Appears to be intoxicated at this point. And from 8:16 to about 9:30, which is approximately an hour and 15 minutes, Juan was able to purchase hard liquor 3 times to the point of intoxication. I will provide the interior view after I show him exiting. That's me. I'm going to go into the internal view. pay attention to this one as well, please. I'll fast forward till they enter. The loiterer is still on scene. He's off camera. He can be seen from the other view. If you wish, I will present that. But he is standing over here by the ATM. He walks in. Just watch as he walks in. She gives him back his phone. A purchase is made. She's currently bagging the alcohol. He throws the money on the counter. He grabs the bottle, pretty much cracks it open in front of her, because she's standing over here, takes a sip. She's right there. Gives him his change. She does not appear fazed by it, never called the police. Throws her another tip.
Doesn't look like there was any sort of conversation either, telling him he's not supposed to do that.
Nope, she doesn't engage him. She just kind of watches. He then decides to open and crack it up again and take another sip. She is standing within purview. And now I think it upsetted the loiterer, because the loiterer walks over, engages, then he slaps him in the back. He's like, come on, man. So he walks away, stunned by it a bit, pulls out his phone, not sure if he's trying to call us or whatnot, but they begin to engage in an almost, he's packing to square up on him. His friends hold him back. Clerk's still right there. But she's unfazed. She doesn't say a word to him, just watching it go on. They engage a bit. Appears to be intoxicated at this point. Staggering as he walks out. Squares up to his friends now. She's still here, haven't called us yet. They do ultimately calm him down. And then as he walks out, you'll see he blow a kiss to the clerk and leaves. They make up. He blows her a kiss. 2 kisses. Oh, I missed that part. 2 kisses. Apologies. And walks out. Exits at about 9:30, 2 hours. They remain, one of his friends remain on scene. I'm not going to presume the conversation they're having, but this is pretty much it for this video. Okay to move on?
Yes, please.
Pardon me, as you were. At 9:34, Zoo, which I referred him in the video as Illyrium, by his first name, he walks in. Nothing alarming at this point, but I want you to just see him in detail so that way you know who I'm referring to when I say the name. He's identifiable as wearing jeans, hat, and a blue and white jacket. Hereinafter referred to just as his first name, Illyrium. Officers are familiar with him, and the reason why I gave him, in my initial narrative, his history is to show that officers are familiar with him and why we are. And the reason why I provided his in-house call log and history is to show why we are familiar with him and why we recognize him by name. And not just to prolong the narrative any further. It's with purpose. I'm gonna fast forward until Juan walks back in to make change. And exits at 9:41. The whole time, loiterer is still on scene, by the way. But he does make his alcohol purchase and exits for the time being until he returns.
Now, the party of three, have they come back throughout the day, or that was it for them?
Oh, they've already came back 3 times. But you're talking about after this?
After the last?
So after the first 3 times, the last final time, only one comes back. The 4th time. It's where we simultaneously also encountered Hellers to investigate further for something else. This secondary locate was through video review. Due to the fact that I personally saw him myself when we went into Heller's post initial with Rigoberto and Illyrium. So that's why it's pretty much administrative anyways to request video footage to investigate further anytime there's a possible violation of a licensed establishment. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So you'll see what I wrote in here with the video skipping. I mean, we don't have, do you need to see them?
No,
Okay,
no.
those are
No.
just kind of how long they've skipped that I've witnessed, but I'm gonna, in the interest of time, forego it unless you want to see one of them, entirely
No.
up to you.
I don't think that's necessary, fellow commissioners?
No.
Counsel? Okay. So we move on to 1202. Just to highlight the loiterer returning.
It's not a bar.
1915. 1202. Let me go back to the thing. Pardon my eyes, I'm trying to locate it here. Lots of files. I'll just use the cashier view between 12:04 to 12:22. That may have been one of the videos that only showed him. So that's him right there. Through detailed description earlier, can you affirm that that's him?
Yes.
Through the black jacket? I'll fast forward a little more until he gets on screen. As to fully provide. Can you possibly see that that's him at that point?
Yeah, I recognize the jacket.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that was
Yeah.
established.
Yep.
After
Very-
exiting.
Very clearly the same.
Thank you.
We got him.
All right. Okay, moving on. 12:21. Let me see if any view can be seen from this, or if it's the next footage. Apologies. Illyrian walks in, grabs, from what I could only see from that cooler that has the miniature drinks, just a red, black, and white can. I'm not going to say whether it's alcohol or not. I can't tell. Makes that purchase. Then we'll move on to 102. I'll show you the exterior view first. This is the reason why we initially encountered and investigated Hellers, which unraveled other things. I will fast forward, let it run. So this exterior camera, you're gonna see, it's going to show both Rigoberto and Illyrium coming into camera view. At the end, when they exit. They don't spend a long time in the store, but they do walk in on 102, and they exit at about 104 or so. For the purposes, let me pause real quick. For the purposes of identification in the video, the male party that walks in wearing a yellow construction jacket and a hat, officers are familiar with him. In reasons you've already been explained during the initial report. He will be referred to hereinafter by his first name of Rigoberto. They're walking into Hellers. I'll start it over, apologies. So, as he's walking, Just keep an eye on his gait. They both walk in. I'm gonna keep it at exterior view for a minute, so you guys can see them walk out. And then I'll explain what's happening outside, and then I'll go into the interior camera and present the purchase, okay, while we have it. I just don't wanna keep going back and forth, okay? I'll fast forward till they walk out. They come out about at 1:04 or so. So they're walking out. They're out of view, but they start walking together towards the porta potty, which is when the exchange of bottles and consumption transpired. And then you'll eventually see officers who are standing beyond the camera a bit and can kind of see, obviously from a distance, the porta potty. They go out of view a bit where initially the bottle was passed to Illyrium for a swig, and then you'll see Rigoberto standing in this corner right here, taking his swig, which then we just walked, as we were walking, and there he is, it's happening right now.
And you observed this while you were on detail?
Correct.
Him wearing the bright jacket, drinking publicly?
Yes.
Okay.
So you'll see us come into frame, myself and Officer Cohen. That's me. That's Officer Cohen Jr. We approach them. They see us. They start to scatter, as I mentioned, and split. But we do encounter them. And you're going to see, I'm addressing them at this point. And I'm trying to keep an eye on Illyrium at the same time, but he's kind of already gone at that point. So we're talking, as mentioned, the initial narrative. So simultaneously, do you guys recognize this gentleman? That's Juan. Showing up this time, he is going to be attempting to make a fourth purchase in front of us. He just is totally unaware, intoxicated at this point, and the clerk almost sells it to him with us in the store. We had to stop it. I get to this point and I realize I want to capture this on body worn camera. So that way there's just full transparency. So I turn to my partner, Officer Cohen Jr. Hey, let's stand by. I'm gonna radio in for an officer to come by with a body worn camera, which we will transition to after this. So at this point, Juan is in the store. We don't enter the store until 1:10. We're entering Heller's once Officer Rossetti gets on scene, and after we encounter Rigoberto.
And Juan's inside of the store the whole time?
Juan is inside the store
Until you go in?
until we get in. So a good, like, 4 or 5 minutes. The store was very busy at the time, and he was also searching for money. And I'll explain when we get to the interior camera. Oh,
Is there anything else of importance for us to see in the exterior right now?
no, I'm about to transition.
Okay.
Yes. Excuse me. Looking for 1306. Keep in mind, the loiterer is still there, or a friend. I go to open the door, then I change my mind, because I'm like, I want a body-worn camera here. All right, here we go. This one, though, I think I'm going to show you both the latter view of the interior, so you'll see what he was doing when he was, like, fidgeting on the floor. He walks in. This is his 4th time today. He's kind of asking him for money. He goes over to the other gentleman, seems like he's asking him for money. The reason why I want to show you the other view is because it's covered by the tackies. Stand here. He goes over to that gentleman, engages him in conversation.
Counselor,
He
do you feel
stumbles.
do you feel the need to see the other view?
No, but if you want to.
Okay.
We're good?
Commissioners, do you want to see the other angle, or are you good?
We're good.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. So now he's standing there, just waiting for a purchase. He stumbles, puts his $5 on the counter. And as he's leaning over, he doesn't even realize his rear end is showing. Officers enter, and I tell him to pull up his pants. At this point, I'm going to transition to body-worn camera. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll show it until I have him exit the store. But at this point, she takes the money starts to look at the counter behind here, which you'll see on body one camera, and we pretty much kick them out. This is when we took the bottle off of Rigoberto. In the interest of time, I'm just going to present up to the moment where Juan is told to exit the establishment, because after that, it's just administrative.
Perfect.
She turns to ask him what he wants, goes to reach for it, and we stop it.
Did she not understand why she couldn't sell him alcohol at that point, or do you have to explain it to her after?
Well, it was ultimately determined during our administrative inspection afterwards that there's no rules or regulations that she could refer to on the premises.
Okay.
So I think this is a training issue. She
Okay.
was also a new employee, so I will defer that to Ike.
Okay.
on what she knows or what she doesn't know.
But it looked like she appeared to not understand why she couldn't sell it to him at the time.
It does not appear that she understood that she couldn't sell it to intoxicated persons.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
The rest is body-worn camera with administrative inspections in regards to the violations already
Yeah.
highlighted.
I-
Suggestion of forego it in interest of time?
I am good with foregoing that, Counselor. That's fine. Okay.
Okay.
Fellow commissioners?
Yeah, I think her report is detailed enough. We
Yes.
could skip it.
Thank you. Conclusion of video evidence then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh,
Actually, can I do a closing?
Yes.
Real quick closing? I just had a closing paragraph to my investigation,
Okay.
not to make nothing further
Sounds good, as
in
long as
evidence.
it's not argument.
In the conclusion, with the interest of addressing quality of life issues, especially in the downtown area, when a licensed establishment fails to adhere to the rules and regulation, they no longer act as good neighbors, contributing to the success of our community, but they are adversely contributing to the perpetual conduct and issues that ultimately enables individuals who may be already battling with substance dependency medically. The Chelsea Police Department recommends that the Licensing Commission consider all the facts presented and issue a disciplinary action that is appropriate to these violations. Additional to any sanctions of disciplinary actions, we request to include retraining with rules and regulations to all employees in their best understood language. Out of everything that we mentioned, we did additional to subsection 2.09 in regards to operational video surveillance system. Subsection H in section 2.09, the continuous 30 days due to the skips. This is just to maintain transparency.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Thank you.
Counselor, would you like to speak to what was presented?
Yes, just a couple of questions, Sergeant. None of the people that you came into contact with that day were taken into protective custody, were they?
No.
Okay, and so none of them, the gentleman who you just saw on the body-worn camera was standing perfectly straight when you were telling them you couldn't sell the liquor, correct?
He was standing.
He was standing straight, right? He wasn't swaying in the video.
I mean, if that's what you saw, yeah.
Okay. Well, it's not what I saw, it's what you saw.
Yeah, I saw him standing.
Okay. And because there's a point where there's about 5 or 6 seconds where you're looking at him, he's looking at you, and he's standing like this. He's not moving in either direction.
Yeah, folks usually stand straight, yeah.
Okay. And the loiterer that you've asked about, do you know what his relationship is with the clerk that was working there?
No.
Do you know what his relationship is with the people that own the store, with the gentleman that owns the store?
No.
Okay. And he didn't cause any problems that day, correct?
No.
Okay. I'll get to substantive sort of argument at this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I follow up on his question, though? When you were observing the person that you denied alcohol, from what I've seen and heard, it sounded like he was slurring his words to the clerk, and that's why she had to ask twice about the type of alcohol he was requesting. So from your point of view, did you hear him slurring? And I do understand it was in Spanish. Did you hear him slurring?
Most definitely, it sounds like he was kind of grumbling, because
Grumbling.
it's just almost like sounds at that point.
Yeah.
And he
Didn't
was
sound
doing-
very coherent.
Correct, he was doing more of like the nods and than anything.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I will state, as an observer of this and as somebody who has taken TIPS training more times in my life than I think anybody should really have to, because it's really long. Seeing this gentleman who was denied the purchase at the end, throughout the course of the day, he's obviously intoxicated. Everything they teach you in TIPS training of the change in his gait, his eyes are barely open in that last video, whereas when you see him earlier in the day, they weren't like that. So you're seeing all of those things that somebody that has gone through that safety or the service of proper alcohol is taught to look for, to not serve or sell to an individual. So as somebody who, again, has gone through those trainings, that would tell me that this is somebody who should not be being sold to. So whether or not you're able to stand up straight at a point in time, you're seeing all of these other signs that over the course of the day, this person has been coming in front of you, and it's the same clerk over and over again. Common sense and those other signs lead you to believe that this person is definitely an intoxicated individual. And as we all know, that is against the law to sell to an intoxicated individual.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, to Mr. Ike, the person who is behind the counter, have you ever explained them that her or the other workers, that if someone is intoxicated, shouldn't be selling any alcohol at all?
Excuse me. Yes, Commissioner, I have, and just of importance, I've let this cashier go. So, because I noticed that some people are very trainable, some are not trainable. So the moment I observed that in her, I let her go.
Another question is regarding the guy that was hanging around the establishment. Is he a worker or?
Good observation. He's not a worker, but I would more or less say he is a help. He comes to help them get food. Maybe they give him money to go get them coffee. Occasionally, like in this particular day, permit me to use the word petite. The lady is a little bit new and petite, so I didn't want somebody to take advantage of her size. So I got him to stay around while I was away.
So you're familiar with
It's
him?
for safety. Yeah,
Okay.
I got it.
All right.
Before anybody else has any other questions, I just want to ask if you had anything else that you would like to say prior to additional questions from the counselors.
Yes, if I could, I just would like to go through, I took the letter, the notice letter, and just sort of went through section by section.
Certainly.
And so if I could,
Sure.
on 2.02, the violation of not having the rules, he acknowledges he didn't have the rules readily available to give to the sergeant when she asked. He did misunderstand because he had the rules, he has a basement office in Hellers. He did have the rules down there, but he didn't have them physically available, and frankly, just, he didn't think. He now has a binder, which he's brought here. We just show that binder. He has, as you may or may not know, he owns Hellers Liquors, and he also owns the Liquor Mart right down the street. So he now has two binders, one in each location, right at the cash register, right on that counter, which has the licensing rules and commissions, training modules, clerk information updates. Most importantly is the City of Chelsea, which we didn't discuss yet, but the City of Chelsea Police Department has in the past issued a do not sale list to establishments. And so that's included in the binder, as well as copies of permits and licenses.
I'm just going to ask a very silly question, because you said he has 2 copies, one at each store. Is this a 3rd copy?
No,
Or do we have it from the store right
We literally
now?
stopped at Hellers on the way. He got his glasses out of the car and then came over here. So Hellers right now would be non-compliant because it's sitting here, to show you. Posting of licenses, and it's interesting, the chief is here. My understanding is he was the former, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think you were the former sergeant in this area. And so my client bought this place 4 years ago. And at the time he bought it, the license was originally posted around a corner going down the stairs. The then licensing commission police officer, now chief, has been relayed to me, has said, that sign's not visible, you can't leave, the license isn't visible there, you can't put it there. And then there was a discussion about, well, you should put the sign here. So, the license here, I keep saying sign, the license here. So the spot that the sergeant did not like was a spot that has been there for 4 years that my client's been a licensee. And my client says it was after a discussion with the then licensing officer from the Chelsea PD saying that would be an acceptable spot. So other than taking it down and putting up the new one on an annual basis, the location has not changed in 4 years. My client doesn't care where it goes. If the sergeant wanted it moved, I have pictures showing, I don't know if you've been in there, but I have pictures, he put up a board with all the licenses. I can submit to you the pictures showing where the licenses are now. They're on a board. Every one of his licenses and permits are on a board, hanging on a pole when you first go in the store. He didn't want to put it too low so somebody could grab it, but it's all sort of probably at my height or a little bit higher level. But that's sort of the background of where that was posted was frankly, it's been there for 4 years since he bought the place, and nobody ever told him it was an issue, and that should be moved. Admission to, let me just see here, so that was 2.03A about posting. 2.04G, licensee may refuse entrance to the premises and anyone appears intoxicated or unruly, may evict someone, and if you do, you should call the police.
Can I just pause you for 1 second?
Yes.
Back to the posting of the signs. You referenced the licenses. What about the other signs of not selling to an intoxicated person? I feel like there's one other one.
Under 21.
And the under 21. Are those also?
So on the counter, and I'll submit these to you, on the counter, it just snaps, and unfortunately, they're not colored, but
Okay.
I don't have a color printer. So I printed them up. I can email the photos if you want them in color, but right on the counter itself, when you go where the guy was leaning in the exchange money, this is right underneath a piece of plexiglass on the counter.
Okay.
You know, under 21, criminal violations, talk about the cigarette laws, the date.
Okay.
You know, so that's there, as well as, if I could, may I approach this?
Yes.
That's the first building on the left. That's the pole, that's where all the licenses are hanging now on that board. Frankly, I'm not totally comfortable with it because they're loose pieces of paper attached to the board.
But now it's compliant, you're saying? Okay.
Nobody's gone by, but I think it's,
I'll have to see this. I'll have to see this in person. It just has to be conspicuous. I understand that conspicuous can be very subjective, but I oversee this seat now, so I will make that determination.
Okay.
May I show? Yes, thank you.
may I just pass it up? So that's right when you walk in, right when you walk in, hell is on the left, there's a pole there. Right by the monitor, and that pole holds up the camera views.
Okay.
What I can say, it appears to be a better location than the last.
That's more visible.
So again,
Okay,
anywhere the sergeant wants it, my client doesn't care where it goes as long as you're happy with it.
Perfect. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, not at all. Admission to the premises. Again, the licensee may refuse entrance to the premises to a person who appears intoxicated or unruly and may evict such patron. Arguably, we saw the scene where, with no sound, where the so-called loiterer and the people had some words. I mean, at some point, I think a worker would have the right to say, you know what, yeah, I'm a little concerned about this, but I think that situation lasted, you know, more than I would have been comfortable with, but it lasted several seconds, and ultimately, when they did their little fist pumps and went on their way. On the fourth attempt to go in and buy liquor when the sergeant was in there, you know, at that point, you could argue, based on your comments earlier, that she should have said, hey, you need to leave the store. But I think the video evidence on the first ones, I don't see them as evidence. And again, I think it's important. The reason I asked the question about the protective custody is the police approach them, you know, they make an evaluation that they're certainly under the influence, but there's a difference between under the influence and intoxicated. And so, you know, I'm not going to quibble with you over the fourth one, but I think the first three, I just don't think that it's a violation under that rule. 2.05 hours of operation. My client has it posted. I have a picture of it with the hours posted, but I would suggest to you, if you read 2.05, it doesn't require the hours be posted. You actually read the rule, that 2.05, there's I think 3 or 4 subsections, and they all talk about who can be in there and at what hours. But there's nothing in 2.05 that says that you have to post your hours on the door. It's a good practice. I don't know why you wouldn't do it. He has now done it, but I would just suggest to you, if you read the rule, there is no violation. It can't be a violation because the rule doesn't require it. Maybe you should change that rule. 2.08B, all licensees shall maintain a schedule of prices charged for all drinks to be served and drunk on the licensed premises or in any room or part thereof. I would suggest to you this can't be a violation because this is not a store where you are buying alcohol to be served and drunk. The word is and between served and drunk. And so it can't be a violation because this is not a situation. It certainly would apply if you were going to my old client at, what's it called? Fanny's Place. You know, if you went there, clearly you have to have prices posted there.
I will say, and obviously it was not presented as such, but I know that there is a subsection that relates to everything being priced in a
Yes.
liquor store.
And
So
I'll
that's
acknowl-
not what was
Right, and I just-
noted here, but
As a technical matter, I say this doesn't apply, that he's been
Yep.
charged, but what I will say.
I would agree.
The sergeant was wonderful to him, he appreciates her. She pointed it out to him, he is now, basically, everything is now price tagged on the shelves. So I think that that solves the problem. And so he takes it, used it as a learning experience to make sure that he does it right the next time, even though, again, just as a technical matter, I don't think it applies to the rules. All alcohol license, 2.08P, all alcoholic beverage licensees are forbidden to make a sale to an intoxicated person. Again, that's the one, I think, the most questionable one is certainly the fourth episode where the sergeant stopped it. I would suggest to you, albeit it looked like the clerk was gonna make that sale, she didn't make the sale. The sale never took place because of the sergeant's intervention. I think in order for there to be a violation of this section, I think the sale should have been completed, and then at that point, now you have a completed thing. Again, a learning experience for my client. This clerk no longer works there, and I'll talk about him in a minute if I could. 2.09A, and I don't mean to keep talking, and if you have any questions, just let me know.
no, I'd like you to
Thank
kind
you.
of present your statements and then we
Yep.
can,
2.09A, it shall be the obligation of the licensee to ensure a high degree of supervision is exercised over the conduct of licensed premises. Each will be held, the licensee will be held accountable. Again, I'm not sure what that violation would be based on, other than trying to piggyback on the fourth guy having his pants down, half down. I mean, unfortunately, I see it every day, and I want to scream at people when I see it, but that's sort of, I've given up on society, the way we allow people to walk around like that. So I applaud the sergeant for putting him in his place on it, but I don't think there's any video evidence that shows that the place didn't have supervision in the sense that something happened there. Again, there was that incident where it looked like there might be something, but again, it happens all the time. People sort of get hot with each other, and then it diffuses itself. 2.09C, act reasonably and diligently to disperse loiterers. I think that's what we're talking about, the loiterer who we say is a friend of the store. If there's some other allegation of a loiterer, I'm happy to listen to it, but I think even the reality is outside of Heller's, I don't think anybody can be accused of loitering outside of Heller's because the storefront is relatively small. So they walk out, and you saw in the videos, they immediately went away from Heller's. They either went near Margolis, or they went, there's an apartment building right next door that directly abutted. And so nobody was loitering
no,
outside.
I think we're all in agreement that the only loiterer was that one gentleman dressed all in
All right,
black,
good.
staying
I just
in
wanna
the
make sure I
store
wasn't
for too
missing
long.
something. Thank you. And then 2.09E, when any noise disturbance, misconduct occurs, threatening the health, that could affect the protection, health, safety of others. Again, I think at that point, 2.09E, I think is a judgment call for the clerk. If she felt that there was a danger, then she certainly had the obligation to call the police department. But if she had more experience, maybe she would have. If the words that apparently were, or the gestures that were being made took place a little bit longer, maybe she would have. If the loiterer, so-called, hadn't stepped in and said, hey, enough, maybe she would have. But nothing went beyond sort of the possibilities of something bad happening there. 2.09H, the video, we take, Madam Chair, your concern about the motion sensors. We're going to bring that back, talk to the IT people, and figure out how to just put them on continuously so that alleviates the concerns about the skips. We didn't need to see the skips, but I think we saw extensive video was provided. I think the sergeant will acknowledge and thank her for the extension that she gave him, but she gave him a hard drive with all the files on it, fully cooperated. We saw extensive videos of the establishment that I think show, in fact, there was another angle that she could have shown, but we all agreed we didn't need to see it. So I think there was plenty of video evidence here. I think the bigger concern that the chair raised was, so next time, he's protected by the video that will show what something good or bad didn't happen. 2.13A5, illegal activity on the premises. Again, our position is that there was no illegal activity happening on the premises. If there was, we had trained members of the Chelsea Police Department there, somebody would have been arrested. It was wrong, first time we're seeing it, the fact that the guy opened the bottle, and took 2 sips was outrageous.
I mean, that's an illegal act on the premises.
Right, no, and again, we all saw that after the fact. My client wasn't there. The clerk is no longer working there. In his words, untrainable. And so that was bad, it was wrong. He acknowledges that. I mean, we're not gonna, we can't dispute that. And then the CMR violation, which isn't in the official notice, but it is in the report. Frankly, we're looking for guidance from the commission on this. So as the officer referenced, Officer Barker referenced, is that the back door is locked. So you may or may not know the history here. There was at one point a recycling operation run out of Heller's. And so the back door was open, the front door was open, and then at some point, way back when, they got in trouble. At some point, they made the decision that the recycling operation was too much of a pain in the neck, even though there's money to be made there. And so this license commission gave the former owners the authority to keep that back door locked. And so my client doesn't, I mean, he prefers it locked because it makes it easier to sort of maintain the control over people. There is a crash bar on that back door. So from an egress standpoint, there is also a deadbolt on it where the key is left in the deadbolt. But I've told my client, I haven't spoken to the building department, but I know the building department would say you can't have that door locked at all. You can just use the crash bar. And so I've told my client, unlock it, take the key out until the end of the night, then you can lock the deadbolt. If the commission wants that door open, or if the sergeant wants it open, we're happy to keep it open when the business is open. He prefers to keep it closed. It gives him a better, as the sergeant pointed out, the store, the way it runs, there's a series of refrigerators, freezers down there, and beer is stored there. And so if you're letting people come in there, the cashier can't even see down there except through the video cameras.
I do believe the larger concern is it being a point of egress.
Right.
So obviously, you don't necessarily want something that somebody's going to have to unlock to then hit the crash bar.
Totally agree.
If it's locked from the outside without that deadbolt being in place, so somebody can't enter from that back side of the business, I would think, and I would defer to the police department for safety matters, but that as long as that back door is unlocked from the inside point of view, that you can walk out in an emergency situation without having to think to unlock something, then I think that that is an acceptable point of egress.
And I'm going to confirm that with the building.
So Chief?
The Capitol, at the time, there was 2 entrances.
Apologies.
Totally difficult for the person on duty to keep control. So we told them to put a push bar. They were coming in from the backside. There's a little cubby hole. They were urinating, drinking, and we came, this is long before, in total, probably 10 years ago, the emergency egress, we do not want 2 entrances. We felt there was better control with 1 entrance, and there's the emergency entrance. Obviously, we don't want a lock, but the push bar was the emergency, which was okayed by the fire department, and that was the reason why.
And I'll confirm with the building department tomorrow and submit something in writing to the commission to say they're okay with even the deadbolt staying there, so long as it's not actually used until the end of the day for the overnight. But we prefer to keep that door closed for obvious reasons. But again, there is a crash bar already there. So.
Perfect.
Okay. So I think substantively, I think I've addressed each of the points. I did want to just sort of, if I could, because I think my client deserves it. So my client's owned Heller's for 4 years. He's owned Broadway Liquor Mart for 2.5 years. This is the first time for either one of these establishments since he's owned it that he's been before the commission for a violation. Very proud of that. I just want to give you some quick background. Came from Nigeria in September 1997. Originally moved to Roxbury, Randolph, worked for Coca-Cola Corporation. Ultimately wound up buying a gas station, wound up buying 2 gas stations, sort of living the American dream. Gas station business didn't work out. Ultimately, he decided to sell out of that and wound up coming here, buying Heller's 4 years ago. He lives in Boston. As I said, no violations. In the prior liquor store, the prior gas stations, they sold tobacco. He never had a violation for a tobacco violation at either of those locations. Has never had a violation for tobacco or alcohol here until this current thing. His wife is a Chelsea school teacher. His wife, I mean, he's invested in the city. His wife's a special ed teacher here. They have 4 children, a daughter, 26, 3 boys, 24, 22, and 15. He's got a don't ask me why he's here, but he has a master's degree in agricultural economics. And he employs community residents. 90% of his customers are Spanish speaking, so obviously he hires Spanish speaking employees. employees, but, you know, to run the place day to day. He is there 6 days a week. He is at one of the 2 locations. If you go into Heller's and you see the big screen TV with all the video views, not only does he have video views of Heller's, but when he's at Heller's, he has video views of Broadway Liquor Mart because he wants to make sure his stores are safe and are being run properly. He's tried to be a good neighbor. He regrets what's going on here. He looks forward to working with the sergeant and her team to make sure that this doesn't happen again. But the other thing I think is important is City of Chelsea does produce this no sale list. He went on and looked, after he saw the litany of the people's history that the sergeant provided, he went on, interestingly enough, none of those 3 people, or 2 people, are on that list. He's happy to ban them from the store if the City of Chelsea will add them to the list. And then that list, you know, I'm not sure if you've ever seen it, but the list actually has names, dates of birth, and actually has pictures of people. I think it just requires familiarity of the store workers with who these people are. So, I mean, I think that might have solved it before we got to step 1, 2, 3, or 4, if they just knew, hey, the City of Chelsea doesn't want your business, and we're gonna tell our licensed establishments you can't sell to these people. So I would just urge the city to look at updating that list, because it's helpful, it provides him protection as much as it provides the city protection.
Of course. A question that I have is, has anyone between yourself or your clerks, have they gone through any sort of alcohol safety training?
Yes, but recently, no. The reason is people see this job as a climbing step, and I've noticed that you pay and send them to TIP training, which I did get. Before you know it, they have just quit and moved on to something different. And the concern of every store owner is immediately to fill up the gap, at least to keep the stores open. Otherwise, I could still come back to this commission and you will revoke my license for not serving the community. So in that circumstance, that's what we do to fill up that, and then I will train them to tell them basically what is doable and what is not doable.
Okay. I personally believe that all employees should go through TIPS training. I think it's a very important thing, and I understand that people move on. You kind of have a choice. Some companies choose to pay for the training, others just require that the employees do it themselves and pay for it themselves, but it's a very important thing for your protection and your clerk's protection, because they understand the way things work. So it is a very important thing to make sure that everybody has gone through it. It doesn't take a ton of time. It isn't super expensive. And the one for the off-premise, I believe, is a little shorter even than the on-premise one. So very important to make sure that's being done. So if you can just very quickly, Counselor, tell me again which one of the rules and regulations you had conceded to?
Well, what I said, I think the one, let me just pull it up, hold on.
Just on the very quickly, the ones that were in agreement,
Yes,
because I didn't mark it while you said it, and I should have.
gotcha, all right. I mean, well, we acknowledge the 2.02, that we didn't have he had them in the basement, he didn't really,
Yep.
he didn't provide them immediately.
Yep.
We don't believe we violated 2.03A with the posting.
Of the signs,
But,
okay.
you know, admissions to the premises, 2.04G, we don't believe there was a violation there. Hours of operation, 2.05, we do not believe that the rule required it to post the hours. 2.08B, again, specifically refers to for all drinks to be served and drunk on the premises. But we do acknowledge your point that there's probably somewhere else in the rules that require it, and we've already solved that issue thanks to the sergeant's guidance. We acknowledge the violation. I'm taking it out of order. We acknowledge the violation, the fact that the guy drank 2 sips from the bottle. Clearly a violation. We acknowledge that. Let's see. 2.08, again, we dispute. 2.09A, we dispute. 2.09C, we dispute that that applies. 2.09E, misconduct, again, I think that one's more close, but we think that the clerk exercised judgment not to be her concern to be elevated enough to call the police. 2.09H, we don't think that, there may be skipping, but we think, based on the video we've seen, we don't think we violated the rule there. 2.13A5, again, the drinking of alcohol that's clearly something that shouldn't happen. So that's one that we certainly acknowledge that there was a violation on.
Okay. Fellow commissioners, other questions on what has been presented by the counselor or the sergeant?
I think in good practice, especially that you do have alcohol, that you're selling alcohol, and also being a good community member, is the training for your clerks, right?
Yeah.
So again, with Marnie, even though I understand, someone takes the TIPS certification or some safety course, it should be their out of pocket or your out of pocket. It's something that's gonna be a safeguard for you, all right? The friend of the store, I think that's really great that he is a friend of the store. What happens in the instance where it would have been escalated? He's not an employee, right? So you can't control him. And if he does something to escalate the situation and the police weren't called, it would have been a danger to the clerk and maybe damages to your store. So maybe rethink that. Maybe if either hire him or just tell him to check in but not stay the whole day, because it could be a danger if things got escalated. So that's my only advice in those 2 points.
Yeah, like if you want security, make it security. Don't do like a half, like just someone in the store. And I agree, I think the last thing I'll say is, she just wasn't trained at all. I mean, I understand not tips training, but there's just like basic training that you could train. She clearly didn't sound like she knew anything about the rules. So I think that just in general, even if it's before they sign up for the tips, like there's just still basic things you could have trained her on that she didn't have any idea about, so, yeah.
If I could, I should have said it, and I apologize. I think he may have mentioned at the last hearing when he was by himself, is he was supposed to be there that day. That was, I think, her first or second day on the job. And so he was supposed to be there to train her. He had this eye issue come up that he had to go for this exam, so he was up. And of course, bad things happen at the wrong time. Totally agree. She was completely untrained. We accept ownership of that.
Enya?
Also, regarding the guy who bought the bottle and had those sips inside, you workers now know that they shouldn't allow anybody open a container inside the premises?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Other comments from my fellow commissioners? Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this matter? Not seeing anyone. A couple things that I would like to see take place would be to have a requirement for all employees to undergo TIPS training and to have their certifications turned in to the licensing department. And in addition, to have the camera footage, or not the camera footage, the camera system adjusted to be a continuous rolling footage for 30 days. Motion cameras would not be a continuous rolling 30 days because it would have breaks in the hours. So just to ensure that you are 100% in compliance with having everything that you could possibly be asked for. Nobody's going to question any breaks in videos on if somebody played with the video, didn't play with the video, to ensure that nothing gets missed because the cameras didn't trip because somebody approached the camera from a slightly different angle and it didn't catch it, and something's missed on camera at a point in time where something goes really wrong in your store and you need that video surveillance for your own protection. That's one of the things that you really need to remember, is those cameras are there for your protection as much as for the city doing an investigation on something that's going on. Not that we want anything to happen, but it is for your own protection. So I would expect that an upgrade or an adjustment to that camera system takes place so it is no longer motion, and it is a continuous stream of video. And the signs, I would ask that the police department makes another visit to confirm that they are comfortable with where all of the where all of the licensing signs are all now located, to ensure that there's no violations with the adjustments that have been done. As we've stated, don't deadbolt that door. Make sure that somebody can just walk up and hit that crash bar to get out of the building. But definitely keeping it locked from the back would be okay. The other thing I would ask of the police department during that visit is ensuring that everything now does have pricing on it, because as I noted, there is a section of the rules and regulations that references all items having price, because we did have another location come before us that had that very violation. So I know it is indeed in the code. I just couldn't cite it to you because I'm not a lawyer and I don't memorize those things. But if we can make sure that that is all now in place and everything is priced accordingly, I think those pieces are very important. I'm very concerned at the fact that, in my eyes, we clearly see somebody who is intoxicated being sold to. And we need to make sure that your team understands the importance of not doing that. I do understand that it is the very first infraction that you've had before us, it being a new employee. But in that same sense, I understand it's her first or second day. You are telling us that there are some extenuating circumstances due to a personal medical condition, but it is so important in a licensed establishment that nobody is left to handle the sale or serving of alcohol that isn't fully trained. So whether that meant that your store couldn't be open that day or somebody else had to be called in, it is imperative that moving forward, you never have anybody left in your store that is not properly trained in that service of alcohol. Again, you're jeopardizing your license by not having somebody personally trained. And having to close your business for one day because you don't have somebody to staff it that is properly trained is going to affect you far less than having to come before the licensing board and having your license taken away because something goes wrong. So it's very important to remember that. And obviously, as a business owner, you don't want to close. You want to be able to sell, but you have to think the long term of your business and your license. I do think seeing the concern of the police department, we know we have a lot of individuals in the downtown area in particular that we know have problems with consumption. So we do need to make sure that all of our liquor stores are keeping their eyes open. And whether it's on the do not sell list, which obviously is a very important tool that our city provides, but we also just need to use our own common sense and not sell to people that we see are just hanging out on the street with a little brown paper bag. I saw someone myself coming home the other night in the general area that had a the black plastic bags that when the liquor's not in the brown paper bags and it's in the black plastic bag. I saw someone when I was driving home staggering with a black bag, which tells me he just purchased liquor from somewhere and clearly stumbling crossing the street. And is lucky he didn't get hit by a car. So whether that happened at your store or somewhere else, I don't know, because I'm just driving back into Chelsea at that point in time. But we do clearly have an issue that needs to be kept an eye on. In terms of findings, I do agree that it's too many pages to the report. It's because it's a good report, but there's a lot of pages.
15.
So I do agree that the most important violation that I saw there was the drinking on the premise, which one of you who knows all of the numbers off the top of your head, if you want to chime in with which ones those are, that would be really helpful.
2.13.
2.13. So I think we can all be in agreement that we find fault in violating 2.13 because clearly we're seeing somebody drink inside of an off-premise establishment, which I think we're all in agreement is against the rules. So that 100% is in violation. Fellow commissioners, do you agree with that one?
I do agree with that one.
I do also believe that section 2.08 would be found in violation because to me, again, as somebody who has been trained in observing people who consume alcohol, 2.08p of alcoholic beverage licenses are forbidden to make a sale or delivery of alcoholic beverages or alcohol to a person who is intoxicated. The third time around, he was intoxicated. The fourth time was really obvious, but you're seeing that building the whole time. So I would say, it is my belief that that would also be in a violation. Fellow commissioners?
Yep.
I agree.
So there's that one, 2.13. And then, as you've stated, you agree that we didn't have the rules and regulations in a visible location. So I think we're all in agreement on that one. The license being displayed, I understand the argument that if you were told it was okay at one point in time, not okay at another point in time, but obviously it matters where our police department is telling you it is appropriate. So if those are being adjusted already, that one I'm less concerned about if they were on site and just not displayed well and they've been adjusted to be where the police sergeant is comfortable with. Again, if the police department goes back and checks and is not okay with where those are placed, then it needs to be adjusted immediately to where the police department feels is an appropriate location.
Wherever the sergeant wants it, it'll be. If she doesn't like tonight where it is now, we'll move it wherever she designates.
And because it wasn't cited, we can't note the violation of the not having things priced appropriately. But if everything is not priced appropriately, I would want, when the police department goes back and checks, I would want that to be noted as a new violation if that has not been taken care of before the police department goes in. Everybody in agreement on that one? Just because it is a violation, it just wasn't noted, so we can't cite that one. Am I missing anything? I do believe with the hours of operations that is, as you were saying, that you don't find any statement that states that it must be posted on the door. I believe the hours of operations, as you noted, is talking about who can be on property outside of the hours of operations.
Correct.
Correct?
Who could be there to clean,
Okay.
you can't have family and friends,
Yep.
they're gonna be workers. But again, we've done it anyway, when the sergeant goes there, she'll see, or her team goes there, they'll see that the hours are posted on the door, just, it's good business practice.
As we did that one, we did that one. that one. We did that one. And with the CMR violation,
I don't think we have jurisdiction to make a finding on that.
so the only other thing that I would state regarding that for your, just the personal safety of everyone in your store, whether they're clerks or customers, making sure that that point of egress is fully clear as well. So you need to make sure that you don't have anything stored. I want to say it has to be a 36-inch clear pathway to that door in order to be compliant with building code. So you want to make sure that anything that you are storing, cases of beer or anything else in that rear hallway, does not block that point of egress, because then that's where you're going to end up getting in trouble. So I would keep that pathway clear and don't deadlock the door. But you had already been granted by the prior board to have the door locked from the exterior, and I think we're all in agreement that it makes sense to keep that door locked from the exterior so long as it's just a push bar for everyone's safety to get out. Okay, so have we made a note of the ones that I stated?
Yeah, so as far as what we're going to make a definitive finding on, that alcohol was consumed on the premises, that alcohol was served to an intoxicated individual, and that the rules were not properly on site at the time. The other ones, I think, are more judgment calls, and it looks like they've all been addressed, but those are the ones I heard you want to make, the board to make a finding on, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I would just ask for a motion for the decision that I'll write out.
Can I get a motion to find them in violation of,
You can do it all at once.
do I
You
have to
could
say them all again?
No, you can just say, say it in one motion. Ask for a motion that alcohol was consumed on the premises and that alcohol was served to an
Yep.
intoxicated
Now I'm good.
individual, and that the rules were not on the premises per the rules. And then we can go forward with whatever you'd like.
And if it'll make it easier for you, 2.02, 2.08P, and
13.
2.13A5. Those are the three.
Can we get a motion that we find them in violation of those three sections?
I will make a motion that all three violations.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So the next matter is any disciplinary action that the fellow commission thinks is needed for this.
So I just want to make a comment before we think about this. I understand what you said about the clerk, and she's no longer there, but I do worry about the training for your future, for your current and any future clerks. So, since we agree on the violation, I believe if you do the TIPS training or any safety course, that it will address the drinking on the premises and what to do when that happens to anybody who's working that day, and also when serving alcohol or selling alcohol to someone who's intoxicated. If you could show us that your clerks have taken that course or certification and provided to the city, I would be inclined to not fine them or any disciplinary action. I just want them to show that they are going to do due diligence.
Okay? Fellow commissioners, thoughts?
I would also agree with Commissioner here. Since there is the first time that they have this incident, I agree with her to send them to do all these trainings and certification and provide us that you're gonna comply with the rules and regulations of the city and the License Commission.
Emily?
Yeah. I mean, you're lucky that's all that happened. She was a young woman by herself in a liquor store with no idea what she was doing. And you're lucky that this is like, it could have gotten a lot worse for her. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I agree. You've never been here before, but.
Thoughts from the commission on having whether we do a 2-day suspension in abeyance for the next 6 months if there's no other infractions that come before us and they turn in all of the TIPS certification, and the police department has confirmed that they've upgraded their video surveillance system. But if anything were to happen within those 6 months, then that 2-day suspension would be added on to anything of a future violation during that time.
So it's just to be clear, if they don't provide the TIP certification or have no infraction in 6 months, they will not have to serve those 2-day suspension?
Correct.
But if anything happens or they do not provide the TIP certification, then they will have to be before us and they will be issued a 2-day suspension?
Correct.
All right.
And if something happens, if a future incident were to happen, it would be whatever disciplinary action we
Plus the 2
found,
days.
plus
Yeah.
the 2 days from this.
I will agree to that.
Yeah.
Can,
Do you want me to make a motion?
yes. So can we get a motion for a 2-day suspension in abeyance for, tell me if I'm saying it wrong, for 6 months pending
Proof
The-
of TIPS training.
the proof of the TIP certification for all of the employees of the store, a correct upgrade to the surveillance video system to be a continuous rolling 30 days, and then no infractions coming back before us for another disciplinary hearing in the next 6 months. So if we go past that 6 months, this 2-day suspension disappears, but if something is to happen within that 6-month period, this 2-day suspension would be added on to any further disciplinary action found by the board of a future infraction.
Perfect.
Motion.
And a
I
second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
2 quick questions.
Yes.
Do you know, my client asked me, do they do TIPS training in Spanish? I'm assuming they do.
Yes.
They do.
Okay.
Yes,
All right, that
they
answers that.
definitely do.
Okay, perfect. And he wants to say something, but I want to thank the commission, I want to thank the sergeant and our team for the professionalism and, the consideration.
And for that TIPS training, there is online access nowadays, so you can do the whole thing online. It doesn't even require people to have to go to a class and take the time. The ease of taking that now is very simple.
I did mine online. Yeah, but thank you so much, the chair. Thank you, commissioners. Sergeant John, I'm personally grateful to you and Santiago, because what I think has happened that you have made me a better manager. So I don't look forward to coming back to this body for ugly situations, rather for maybe something better than what it is.
We appreciate that,
So-
and we appreciate that you have fixed some of
Yeah,
those
so-
situations.
My promise is that I will have immediately jumped into finishing the few things that are left. But the moment I get out of here, we are driving to DC for a niece who is graduating in engineering from Howard. So once we get back next week, I will try within my possible time, and I'm glad you gave me about 6 months, but within a month or thereabout, I'm looking forward to getting everything fixed. Thank you, and thank you very so much.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I think I can safely say on behalf of the council that it was here on the marijuana bit license. Thank you for taking them out of turn.
Thank you. And with that,
Next one's in.
Our next meeting is scheduled for June 12th, 2025. Meeting adjourned.